You know, it's for some of you, it's always a great Sunday when your pastor doesn't have to speak to you again. For me, it's always great to be here when I'm not preaching because I get to hear how God is at work in the lives of others. I get to be encouraged and challenged by truth as others bring that to me. So I am so thankful for the folks from Hope is Alive being here to share what God has been doing, to share just the story of God at work in their lives and to bring hope to us today. And I want to introduce to you someone that you know that's going to be introducing people that we don't know. So the program director for the women's ministry of Hope is Alive is Stephanie Morcom. And Stephanie, we're so glad that you're here this morning.
Good morning. So I always say I'm not going to get nervous because this is like family, but then like right before I have to come up here, I get nervous. So, man, thank you guys so much for having us. Thank you for all this stuff. You're being Jesus to us. And First Baptist Duncan always shows up, I feel like. There's never a doubt that you guys are going to show up. So I appreciate that so much. You guys have been with me through a lot. It's funny, when I see my Sunday school teachers, I always feel a little bit bad when I see Juanita or Sunday school Susan because I was a hard youth. I feel like I moved here when I was in 10th grade, and I did not want to move. I did not want to move my friends. I did not want to leave my boyfriend, and I hated it, and I vowed that I was going to make the move something my parents, to put it nicely, would never forget. And I think that's probably what I did. And I had a pretty rebellious youth, I would say. I was a fight to get me here. I don't know if I smiled when I was. And I was not an easy person to live with. And I always feel bad for putting my parents through that. Because I knew the right way to live, but I, for some reason, didn't want to do it. And there's Jordan. I'm sure Jordan remembers, like the people I went to high school with. I was just I wasn't a good person. And so maybe I knew who Jesus was. I was a Christian. I was just choosing to live in darkness. I got married at a young age, and a lot of you were at my wedding. I got married here. And we were married for a little bit, and then that ended in divorce. And shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I'm sure many people know what that is, but it's painful. And I was prescribed pain medication, and that became an outlet for me to feel better about myself all the time. And I began to take more and more and more and more and more until it was a huge problem that I had been dealing with for probably 10 years, and I did not know how to stop. And throughout that 10 years, I went to multiple treatment centers. I was in ICU at the hospital here from an overdose. I was hospitalized multiple times. I got arrested, pulled over a lot of times. I just was living in darkness, and I lived that way for a long time, and it took me a long time to figure out how to get out of it. And so today, I can tell you that this summer I'm going to have, or next month, I'll have 3 years clean and sober. Thank you. Which is pretty crazy because I used to not think I was going to make it a day. And you'll probably get to hear that from our residents that speak, right? We don't know how we're going to manage. I was trying to manage my life without Jesus, and that was the problem. It's impossible to do. And so what happened that made me get better? I went to treatment for the final time, and then I moved to Texas for a while. And so in November of 2015, I came up here. We were talking about what we were thankful for and grateful for, and my dad spoke for a minute, and I spoke for a minute. And I told you guys that I was moving in December to be a part of Hope is Alive Ministries, because in December of 2015, they opened their first women's house. And so I was making the journey to be a resident there. And since I've been there, man, God always amazes me, but God has done an even greater work in my life. I might have had the tools to stay sober, but I'm learning how to use them. And I'm learning how to use them as a woman of God, a woman that has good character, that has integrity, and that can lead. That's what I'm learning to do. I'm learning to live for Jesus where I'm at. And so that's what God has been doing. So I moved there in December as a resident, and I became a house manager. And then December of this last year, I came on staff, which is something I wasn't expecting to do, and I'm so eternally grateful. It's like a dream come true. So we had our first women's home. We hold 11 girls in that home. Man, like, the girls in our house have a soft spot in my heart. It's life-changing. It's a magical place. Allie always says it's magical, but it is. December of this last year, we opened our second women's home, which allows us to hold 11 more girls, which is phenomenal, because women need resources, and they also need Jesus, so it's perfect, right? We would not have been able to open those homes without people like you supporting us. And it might not seem like not much to bring us toilet paper and stuff, but those are the kinds of things that we need like every single day. And so it's huge. Your support is huge. This last year, we've had 6 girls be baptized in our houses, which is phenomenal. Man, I can't tell you guys how good it feels to be up here. And if you ever think for one moment that your prayers don't matter, you're wrong. I still have all my prayergrams, that the intercessory prayer room sends. I have all those that I got sent when I was in treatment. They're in my room. I still have all of them. When you're going through darkness, you feel like you're alone. And I never felt alone. Maybe I did, but I knew in my heart I wasn't. And so maybe you guys weren't there with me, and you probably didn't know all the dirty details of what was going on in my life, but you prayed. And I believe because of your prayers, I'm where I am today. And so don't ever think that it doesn't matter. I know that we can seem overwhelming maybe in the time, and you don't know what to do. But man, just pray. Pray and support. I think that's the best thing you can do. It feels good to see you guys here. And I love you. And so I have the privilege of introducing Sam. Samantha moved into our house November 28th, which is actually before it opened. She's our very first resident. She's from Wichita, Kansas. I know that she's going to blow your socks off. So here's Sam.
Okay, I'm going to have to adjust this mic. Just glad I didn't fall up the stairs while I was coming up here. I'm not used to wearing heels, sorry. But like Stephanie was saying, I just want to thank you guys for your partnership. Like the toilet paper, things like that, they may not seem like a big deal, but it helps us tremendously because those resources allow us to use our resources to help people save their lives, And I just want to tell you guys I'm really grateful for churches like you because it gives people like us a second chance at life. And so, like Stephanie said, I'm 19 years old. I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and I moved here November of 2015. But my dad's a colonel in the Air Force, and so I've moved a lot growing up, so it was really hard to make friends and stay friends with them because it felt like I would make friends, and then it was like, okay, well, when am I going to move next? Because it would just, with being a pilot, it's so unstable. We'd move all the time. And for the most part, I was a really happy kid. I loved talking to people. I was very active. And I moved to Wichita when I was 9 years old. And I have an older brother and an older sister. And my brother is 5 years older than me. And when I was little, he was very abusive. And one of the things I remember being a huge impact on my life, I was in 4th grade and he was in high school, and that was the first time I ever wanted to kill myself just because of the things he said to me. And I remember I ran into the bathroom and locked myself in there, and I had scissors in there, and I was just sobbing, and my brother knocked on the door and was like, Samantha, open up. And so I was like, oh, he does care about me, blah, blah, blah. And I opened the door and he grabbed the scissors and said, these are too valuable, find something else. And that just, being a child, that just broke my heart, and that made me see the world as ugly and hateful, and I wasn't good enough. And I let that moment define me my whole life, And after that, I just continued spiraling down, and I was self-harming. That was a big part of my story. And the first time I drank, I was 12 years old. It wasn't alcoholically yet, but I was still spiraling out of control. I was really, really depressed. I was self-harming. And when I was 13, I had some friends who had weed, and that was the first drug I used. And I remember the first day I got high, instantly it was like, I want to do this every day for the rest of my life. There was never a functioning period for me. It's that first time it was daily, daily, daily. And soon it became not good enough. And so I would steal alcohol from my parents. I would steal money from my grandparents. I stole a bottle of pills from somebody at my church who had just gotten surgery, and I got hospitalized several times for suicide attempts. And it was a very dark time in my life. And so when I was 15, February of 2013, my parents kind of fooled me to get me there, but they sent me to a place called Teen Challenge, and I was there for 18 months, and it was a very hard experience. And for the longest time, I held a lot of resentments towards it, because I was like, oh, I missed out on this, I missed out on this, I missed out on this, and it's their fault that I'm like this. But looking back on it, if I wouldn't have been there, I probably wouldn't be standing here alive today, and that's something I'm very, very grateful for. But while I was there were people that would talk about their addiction, and I'd be like, ooh, that sounds like a good idea, that sounds fun. And so it just kind of fueled the fire. Even though I was sober, I wasn't ready to stay sober. And when I left, I got high the first chance I could, and it kept spiraling out. And I experimented with any drug, any drink I could, and I found amphetamines, and that was just a thing that made me feel like this is it, like I didn't have to eat so I could spend more money on pills. And I wanted to prove to my parents that I could be functioning, so it made me energetic and all this stuff. But it did not work at all. And doing that, it became a daily thing. I had to have them every single day, and it led me down a really dark path. I was homeless. I got arrested when I was living on campus at Wichita State, where I was going to school. I flunked out, and I got kicked out of school, surprisingly. They don't like having drugs on campus. We would have thought. But, I was prostituting myself. I was sexually assaulted. My family wouldn't talk to me. I didn't have any friends. I just remember being in my dorm room alone, locking myself in there and getting high. That was my life. I wouldn't go to class. I wouldn't do anything besides that. And it's not a life, I was so unhappy, and those were my escape, so I didn't have to feel the loneliness that I had. In my life, it spiraled so fast, and it makes me really grateful to be where I'm at today, because if I would have kept going down that path, I wouldn't be standing here today either. And so, like Stephanie said, November of 2015, I was homeless, and I called my parents one day, and I was like, I cannot do this anymore, I need help. And for a while, my mom was in a Parents Helping Parents group in Wichita, and she followed Lance's blog posts that he posts just because it gave her hope for my life, And it was the same exact week that I admitted I need help that their women's program was opening. And at first, I was very unwilling to go there because I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do all this stuff. But there's something deep in me that was like, I have to do this for myself. I have to. And so I called Allie, and within a few days I was there. And life now is so good, like I have my family back. I talk to my parents almost every day. I talk to my siblings, and we have a really good relationship. I have all these friends over here that I trust, and back in my addiction, I didn't have any friends. They didn't care about me. All they wanted to do was take from me, and see what they could get. And it was the same way. If I had friends, all I wanted to take, because it was all about me, because that's how selfish I was when I was using. And my whole life, I don't know if I said this, but my parents are Christian, and I was raised Christian, and so I knew about God. And while I was at Teen Challenge, I studied the Bible, and I really wanted to have a relationship with him, but ever since I was little, those experiences with my brother and with my dad always being gone, it just made me have this wall with God. And no matter how hard I tried, and how I prayed, I read the Bible, there was just that wall was there. And at Hope is Alive, in the last few months, I was talking about this with my counselor, and I've never experienced something this miracle, but that wall just disappeared. And like Stephanie was saying, there's girls that got baptized. Lance baptized me last week, and I have a relationship with God, and it's really cool because I know he's there for me, and I've never had something like that before. And there was one point at here, even when I moved in, I still had to learn to love myself, and Allie would always say, we're going to love you until you learn how to love yourself. And people would tell me, I love you, Samantha, I care about you my whole life, but there was one night that Lance came to the house, and he looked me in the eyes and said, you are loved and you are cared for here, and that was the first time I fully believed that in my heart, and I knew he was telling the truth. And that's something that's really cool for me, because I never felt that my entire life. But yeah, I'm super grateful that they asked me to speak, and I'm really grateful for all of you guys. I never in my wildest dreams could imagine that I'd be on stage someday telling my story to people and giving hope to people. I didn't even think I was going to make it to be 16 years old or 15. I thought I was just going to die, and that was going to be it, and no one was going to miss me, and the world would be better off without me. But today I know that's true, or I know that's not true. But sorry. But I loved the first song that it was singing, and it was like, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me, because there's no way that this would have happened in my life without God. And I'm very, very grateful for everybody here, and with Allie and Lance and Stephanie, and yeah, I'm really grateful to be sober and be alive today. So thank you guys.
Sam, I'm so proud of you. Sam's story reminds me every time that God's promises come to those who endure. God's promises come to those that pray without ceasing, that believe even when he's not showing up for us, that a new life is possible. So I'm so proud of you, Sam. I am Allie Lang. I happen to be the COO of Hope is Alive, so I get to take care of 60 residents, which is really exciting, and also be married to like the most handsome, bald, red-bearded man you've ever met in your life. Lance, we're so grateful to your church, because the first time Lance ever spoke was here. And you guys believed in us from day one, which is pretty incredible. He came and he spoke, and Stephanie was there, and she was talking about starting a meeting and all these kind of things, but she wasn't quite in her recovery yet. And so we got to journey with Stephanie through early stages of recovery into treatment, and then have her come into our home and then come on staff. So you guys have such a special place in our heart, and we're grateful that you believed in us from day one. So Hope is Alive has 7 houses right now with over 60 residents. We had the great joy of opening our first men's home in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma this year, which was really exciting for us. The other 4 men's homes are in Oklahoma City, and as you heard, we have 2 ladies' houses in Oklahoma City as well. We have had 7 of our men baptized this year, and 6 of our ladies, which I'm going to clap for. And God has done something really interesting in the last year for Hope is Alive. He started bringing us moms and dads. And we have gotten to see firsthand God restore relationships and bring families back together where husbands and wives can find forgiveness and find sobriety, and children that get to look at their mom and dad and are incredibly proud of them. We have 2 guys right now in our houses that have babies under 6 months old. And God is doing an incredible work in their lives of restoration. And I get to introduce Chad to you guys next. And he is a house manager at Hope is Alive. He grew up right around here. And Chad is one of the lives that we've gotten to see and the restoration happen. His wife is at everything we do. His children are. And it's been an incredible journey to travel with him and see what all this sobriety in Jesus has brought. So will you guys give a big Duncan welcome to me for Chad Robinson?
Good morning, and thank you, Brian and church family, for having us. Can everybody hear me okay? If you're wondering about my southern drawl, it's because I'm born in y'all's neck of the woods. I was born and raised in Bray, Oklahoma, and everybody here is familiar with Clear Creek. I was about 4 miles east of there. I was raised on a ranch. And everything was good in my life. I had a great opportunity to learn to work hard, be raised up in a good time, excelled in school, excelled in sports. I've had the opportunities to go on football scholarships. Instead, went on a rodeo scholarship. I got married at an early age, got married in 1993, and shortly went to work at Halliburton in 2000. Had my first daughter at 1997, and then my youngest daughter at 2001, and then my son in 2006. And, you know, this is one of these things where I was really excelling in life, in my family life, in work, and this is where my story is, where I get in trouble by giving myself all the glory and none to God. Because I had all my accomplishments, I always looked at what I had done and presented them that way, you know, to myself and to people. You know, I accumulated this. I have now this ranch of my own. But all the bad things in life that happened to me, I always tended to give credit to God. Why did you do this to me? What's my punishment? What have I done? And that's where I kind of drifted. I was always a believer, and that will never waver. And actually, I should back up. I learned to kind of not trust people and trust things and trust God in the year 2007. There was a unplanned event that happened in my life that changed me forever, and I was not prepared. Like I said, I had 3 kids at the time, and I went through a divorce in 2007. And the way I was raised is we didn't show any kind of emotional pain, any kind of any hurt or physical for that matter. It was a sign of weakness in my family. So I did not how to go to people, not know how to share with other individuals what I was going through, and the pain became more than I could bear. And but I had known that people had tried to numb their pain in certain ways, and that was by drugs and alcohol. And keep in mind, I'd never drank. I was not a career drinker. I had not drank for 20 years to lose everything. Everything that happened to me happened in an amount of, less than 1 year. And, but February 7th, 2007, I went to the liquor store, bought my first bottle, and got my first DUI that night. I got to spend the night down here in Stevens County. And by the way, does anybody here work at Stevens County Jail? Thank goodness. But anyhow, that's where the darkness began. And, you know, this cycle of addiction, to quickly explain it, is, you know, when I woke up, or I come to that next morning, you know, the pain it was worse. It was, what have I done to myself? Now I've humiliated my family. And so with less than 24 hours getting out, I was drunk again. And that's the routine that gets to starting, is you wake up with all this remorse and this pain of what you're doing and what you've been through, and then that you just have to numb it that much more, and then that evening you're doing, it's just a vicious cycle. And that year I had managed to lose my home, my wife and kids, my ranch, my job at Halliburton, and by the month of December, I was homeless. And there was people that would take me in from time to time, but families can only tolerate that kind of drinking for only so long, usually a few days at the most. And I thought I'd reached my bottom, and I thought, you know what? I got to get this. I got to get right with things. I got to change the course of my life. So I put down the drinking, and I thought I had fixed myself, and I done well for. And let me back up. 2007 in February, I got my first DUI. December, I got my second. 2008, 2 days before I'm going into Stevens County Courthouse for my second DUI, I get my third. And 2009, I'd gotten my fourth. And but anyway, I put the drinking behind me, laid it down, and I done great. I was sober for 6.5 years, or a little over. And you know, it's funny how this works, but the pride started rolling back in, and even more so because I thought I had done this, I had beat this. Now I'm getting back on top of the world, and I'm doing my own thing and getting back with life again. And I had remarried, had a home again. God had blessed me, and I was so undeservingly at the time. And last year, April 21st, 2016, I made a trip back down there to Duncan. This town's cursed. And but my daughter was having my firstborn grandbaby. And I came alone, and with no intentions of this ending the way it did. And anyway, that evening, April 21st, and this is my bottom, is the last thing I told my daughter as I reached down and grabbed her face and kissed her, and as she's holding my grandbaby, and said, "I'll be back. First thing in the morning, I'll be the first one here." And I never made it back. I was down there in Stevens County Courthouse again. I thought that I owed it to myself to celebrate. You know, I didn't have my fancy cigar to smoke. I'm here alone. I thought, why not go to the liquor store? This is my first grandbaby. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing started so dark all over again one more time. And the minute I got out, I got a hold of a pastor friend of mine in Oklahoma City, and I said, and he had introduced me to Lance before, and I did not know that God had planted this seed years ago. But I'd met Lance, and we didn't know each other. He didn't know my story. I didn't know his. And anyway, I said, get a hold of Lance immediately. So, and he did. And I talked to Lance on the phone, and I said, he said, "Have you been to treatment?" And I said, "Yes, several years ago, a few times." But I said, "Lance, I was sober for 6.5 years, and I know where I'm headed." And I said, I need this now." Well, this was a Thursday, and he had moved me into a house Sunday. And this is where I want to tell y'all what y'all have done. This has gave me a chance to restore my life. Like I said, I was always a believer. I had a hard time through what I went through in 2007, trusting people and trusting God. But this gave me the opportunity to reconnect, because at this point when I'd reached my bottom, I was literally that night at Stevens County in that jail with some tough people. I was screaming out to God to help me. But it's restored my relationship. It saved my marriage. It saved my relationship with my employer. And I tell people, had I not even been an alcoholic, this is what I was needing. I rediscovered somebody I never knew I was. I learned that I had a heart. I knew I could love again. I knew I could give back. I knew I could help people. Things that we were meant to do. And how this works is, I'm so blessed. I'm the trust and all the things that I thought I'd lost with my kids before, I now have that same daughter living with me and my grandbaby. I get to enjoy seeing her every day. And guys, I'm so grateful for y'all, what y'all done, what y'all brought, what y'all have shared, and what y'all bring to Hope is Alive. Because addiction, and I know y'all probably heard it when it comes to it's a matter of life and death. Well, it truly is. It truly is. I've been associated with, I knew of addiction, but I've never really been involved in a program like this where, we're in it knee deep. And I've had the unfortunate privilege of having a mother, hug your neck, because I'm at a funeral she's lost her son, and it's gut-wrenching, and it's heartbreaking when you don't have the words to say. And I just want y'all to know, from the bottom of my heart, thank y'all for what you're doing. Y'all really are touching lives and saving lives. And thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for supporting Hope is Alive. Thank you for listening to my story.
I grew up right here in Oklahoma City. I also grew up with a disease called autoimmune hepatitis and common variable immune deficiency. I had a disease where my body attacked my liver, and I didn't have my full immune system, so I would get sick really easy. I was pretty sick up until probably middle school. I always wanted to be as normal as possible, though. I strived to put away my differences and hide them in the closet, and make sure I was involved in everything and was able to participate in everything. Growing up, going to Heritage Hall, I started drinking when I was in high school. I don't know if that might have been part of wanting to be the normal kid, the popular kid. I didn't really have too many problems until my senior year of college. My parents got divorced, and I didn't know how to handle the feelings that I was feeling. They were separated, and it was the first time in my life I really felt true pain, emotional pain, hurt, where you're so sad and you feel for someone else so much that it actually brings physical pain. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I've never experienced that before. And I got introduced to Oxycontin kind of around the same time. I picked it up because it made me feel nothing. And I liked that better than I liked feeling pain. In 2012, I got my second DUI, and I wasn't drinking. I was just using drugs. That's whenever I first started to entertain the idea that I might be an addict. It's not when I got sober, but that's when I started going to counseling, started being drug tested. Real consequences started to set in, and I got an internship with my dream job, let's just say. And I lost that job, and that was what I measured my self-worth with. And that sent me into my last year of grad school hating myself, using way more than I ever had. So I graduated, and a month after that, I had a car wreck that luckily I wasn't driving, but it made me realize that that would have been my third DUI, and I could have actually had some serious consequences at that point. I still didn't quit using then, but my mom and dad had an intervention with me. And I walked in that intervention, and I walked right out. I did not want any part of it. I felt ambushed, and I was angry, and I ran away. But within 24 hours, they said they wanted me to go to treatment, and I thought about it, and I agreed. So in treatment, I didn't know what I was doing. I was about to leave treatment. I had 3 days left, and I called my drug and alcohol counselor here in Oklahoma City and asked him what the next steps would be. And he said sober living was a must. He told me about a couple different sober livings, but he said that Hope is Alive would probably be the best fit for me, and that would probably be the one I should go to. So I called the number 2 guy at the time, Jeff Largent, my house manager, and Jeff, without ever meeting me, knowing anything about me, took a chance on me and gave me a spot in Hope is Alive. That was bold of him, but the best thing that ever happened to me. In Hope is Alive, I actually found a relationship with Jesus. I started to before, but I never had that feeling, that feeling where you're just wrapped in Jesus' love, where you feel secure and safe. I hadn't felt that before Hope is Alive. I learned to make my bed. I have professionally gotten my career back on track. That was where I found my self-worth beforehand. It's still very important to me, and I still sometimes have to bring myself back down to earth that that's not everything. But my professional life on track, I almost have 2 years of sobriety. I've worked on a lot of my own personal qualities. I've never really been very assertive, and through some of the mentoring in the house, I've learned to become more assertive. I've not really learned, but I've become more compassionate. My favorite part about Hope is Alive is the change that you can see in guys 6 months into sobriety or a year into sobriety. And I know people got to watch that change in me, but that's my favorite part, is getting to see that in other people. In my life today, I have a relationship with my family, my brother and my dad and my mom. I have a ton of good friends, Christ-based friends. If I could tell one person considering moving into Hope is Alive one thing, I would tell them that it was the best decision they could ever make. It will change their life. They will come out of it a completely different person than they go into it. And they will never regret it. My name's Colin Kennedy, and that's my story of hope.
Guys, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your stories, for letting us hear how God is working in your lives. It's truly an encouragement. Thank you. As we've sat and we've heard and we've listened to these stories, I know I've been affected. I know you have as well. But I want you to hear this and know this. Addiction doesn't know a racial barrier, a socioeconomic barrier. It doesn't know an age barrier or a gender barrier. It reaches and affects all of us in tremendous ways. And probably the hardest thing to do is to say, I need help. You've heard stories about being at your bottom, hitting bottom. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody here this morning is near that bottom. Or you know someone who is there, or maybe you are. I want you to know this. This is a safe place. This is a place where you're loved. This is a place where we want to extend the grace and the love of Jesus to you. If you know someone, or you are someone that needs help, when we leave, these Hope is Alive gang, they're going to be right out in the foyer. If you feel too awkward to come talk to your pastor about it, seek them out today. Cry out to them. They're here to help. They want to be the hands and feet of Jesus to you. We're going to sing just a time of response to what we've heard today. And it's the invitation that is for every one of us. We come to Christ just as we are. So many people, I think in terms of, I need to just get my life right. I need to fix things. When I get everything okay, then I'll come to God. I want you to hear this morning, in your brokenness, in your need, it may not be addiction, it may be other issues. I love the way Stephanie said, I was trying to manage my life without Jesus, and you just can't do it. Maybe that's where you are this morning. And the invitation is come. Come just as you are. Come receive the grace that Jesus offers. And it may be physically walking down an aisle and coming this morning. That may be you. Or it may be that where you are, you would just stand in a posture of prayer and say, God, I need you now. I need to receive your grace in this moment. And if that's you, don't leave this place without sharing with someone what God has done in your life. Let's stand, let's respond, let's come before the Lord